Hello, Soberinos, and welcome to this week's Friday Fix. Today, I'm going to share with you a couple of tips that are really useful strategies to use if you are ever struggling with your sleep, if you're ever lying awake in the middle of the night and really struggling to get back to sleep. More often than not, when that happens, it's very easy for our minds to tip into anxiety and for our thoughts to start circulating round and round. Issues that, in the light of day and as we're getting on with our daily lives, just wouldn't really be a priority or wouldn't be an issue for us at all. But for some reason, at 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, when we're lying awake at night and we're worrying about the fact we're not sleeping, we're worrying about what's coming up ahead for us, these things that we're getting anxious about can seem all-consuming. So I'm going to share with you 2 tips, and these are strategies that I use when this is happening to me. The first is a breathing technique, and it's a really good first step to take if you find yourself lying awake at night. And it's really, really simple. All you do, and you repeat this 10 times, is you breathe in for a count of 7, you hold for a fraction of a second, and you breathe out for a count of 11. And you repeat it 10 times. Now, in the act of doing this, what you're doing is you are distracting your brain from that circle or cycle of thoughts that it's been going around. What you're also doing at the same time is resetting some of the circuitry in your brain so that it ends up in a state of relaxation as opposed to a state of anxiety. So it works on 2 levels. And the way it would work for me, and this is going to be different depending on how experienced you are in controlling your breathing, how experienced you are with, say, for example, doing things like exercise, working out, where you're having to take control of your breathing, or doing mindfulness or yoga, where you're having to take control of your breathing. If you are somebody who's quite experienced at this, your counting can probably be slightly slower, and you can probably control your breaths and make them longer and deeper. If you're new to this, you're probably going to have to go a little bit quicker and do your counting a little bit quicker. But for me, it would look something like this. So I can do a relatively slow breathing in, hold, and then breathing out because I'm quite good at controlling my breath. For you, it might need to go a little bit quicker than that. But the more practiced you get at this, the easier it is to go slower and deeper. So that's tip number 1, the 7-11 breathing technique, distracting your mind by counting in, hold, counting out, and then having to count up to 10 while you're doing that. And it resets your whole body and mind and gets you into a nice state of relaxation. The second tip is one that I've kind of adapted for myself, but you're basically using the alphabet and you're choosing a subject and you're finding as many things of that subject as you can find that begin with the letter A, and then you're moving on to the letter B. So I do this with places in Scotland for some bizarre and random reason. When I was awake one morning at 3 o'clock and lying there and my thoughts were circulating and I was getting anxious about all sorts of things, I thought, right, I'm going to go through the alphabet. I'm going to distract my mind by having to search, by making my brain focus on something, and it has to search through the filing cabinet in my mind to get to everything it can find that begins with the letter A of a specific subject. So I chose towns or places in Scotland, and so I start by obviously the letter A and searching in my mind for every place I can think of in Scotland that begins with the letter A. And I have to say I'm getting better and better at this, so I've now got about a dozen places in Scotland that I can rattle off with that begin with the letter A. And then you move on to the letter B when you've exhausted. To start with, I was coming up with 2, maybe 3, and now, like I say, I've got 10, 12 that I can sort of rattle off before I move on to the letter B. And what happens is, as your mind is searching for every town in Scotland that begins with the letter A that you can think of, you are distracting yourself again from those circulating thoughts. And you're distracting yourself away from a state of anxiety. And although you're going into a state of focus, it's a kind of easy, monotonous, repetitive focus, which is exactly what you need to lull yourself back into a sleep state. So it works really, really well. And of course, it doesn't have to be towns or places in Scotland. It could be rivers, it could be countries, it could be towns or cities in the country where you live. It could be girls' names that start with different letters of the alphabet. It could be boys' names. You can choose the subject you want to choose. It can be the names of birds, different breeds of birds. Whatever you know is going to work for you. But you can go through the alphabet listing as many things as you can think of within that subject that begin with the letter A, B, C, D, etc. And I have to say, and this is honestly true, every time I have used this technique, I have never got further. I usually get to about letter C or D when I'm doing this before I fall asleep. When I wake up, I have no memory of getting beyond the C or D. Sometimes it might take me up to E or F, but usually C or D. And there's been, I think, one occasion where I've got as far as RST. And that's very rare. That's been like 1, maybe 2 occasions I've got as far as that. But really good technique for distracting your mind, getting into that state of repetition and monotony, and forcing your brain to focus on something other than worrying about the fact you're not sleeping. So yeah, 2 really useful techniques to use: the 7-11 breathing technique and using the alphabet as a way of listing things monotonously so that you get back into that sleep state. If you have your own tips on what gets you off to sleep really quickly and easily if you're awake in the middle of the night, then do share them in the comments below. I'd love to hear them. Let me know how you get on with this, and I will look forward to catching up with you in tomorrow's Saturday Share in the Facebook group. If you haven't already found the Facebook group, come along to Go Get Sober. Just do a simple search for Go Get Sober and we will appear. And you'd be very welcome to join us. We are a great group of fantastic, welcoming, super supportive, non-judgmental people who it's a real pleasure and a privilege to be associating with. And you are very welcome to join us if you're not already there. I will catch up with you there in tomorrow's Saturday Share, where we'll share the good, the bad, and the ugly, and what's going on for us in our sober lives. But in the meantime, let's go get sober together. Bye for now.